In this video, we're going to look at the concepts of perimeter and area, and we're going to start out looking at rectangles, and then we'll finish up by looking at triangles. Simply put, the perimeter is just the distance around a figure. That is, if you were to start in one of the corners and walk all the way around the figure, how far would you go? Now let's say we've been given a rectangle that has a length of 4 inches and a width of 3 inches. And we want to know what is the perimeter of this rectangle. Well, since it's a rectangle, that means that the sides opposite each other are equal. So if the width is 3, then that's going to be consistent. And if the length is 4, then that's going to be consistent. And those are in inches as well. And so if I need the perimeter of this, how far would I go if I walked all the way around this rectangle? Well, let's see. If I start up here and I start walking this direction, I'm going to go 4 plus 3 plus another 4 plus another 3, and that'll be 4 and 3 is 7, and 7 more. I've walked 14 inches. And so the perimeter of this rectangle would be 14 inches. And that's useful and that's good to know. And now from there I think we can kind of develop a formula for this, where if I'm going to use this number twice, that's the length, and I'm going to use this number twice, that's the width. So if I want the perimeter of a rectangle, that's going to be 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And that will be the formula that we'll use to find the perimeter of a rectangle. Now let's talk about area. Simply put, area is the amount of space that something covers up. When you think about buying carpet in your house, that's a great example of area. How much space does it cover? If we look at our 4x3 rectangle again, where if I know that the width is 3, then it's going to be 3 on the other side, and if I know the length is 4, it's going to be 4 on the other side. And when I have this, and I want to know the area, now I'm not talking about walking around this, I'm talking about how much space it covers. So what I've done here is I've cut this into little 1-inch pieces. And what I can do with those is I can draw in these lines all the way across and cut this up. And what I'm making by doing that is I'm making 1-inch squares throughout the figure. Once I've got that, I can count those up and see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got 12 1-inch squares, or another way to phrase that is that the area of this rectangle is 12 square inches. Or you could write that as 12 square inches. And this is about how much space it covers up. So how many square inches are there inside this rectangle? There are 12 of them. You might be thinking, well, there was a formula for perimeter. There's probably a formula for area. And you're exactly right. The area of a rectangle, which you can probably determine by looking at the numbers and how this played out, is just the length multiplied by the width. The area of a rectangle is just length multiplied by width. You may have guessed that this was coming. Here's our word problem dealing with perimeter or area. We'll have to figure that out after we read it. A fence is to be built around a rectangular field, and 48 feet of fence is to be used. If the length is to be twice the width, what will be the dimensions of the fenced-in field? Let's start by drawing a picture. So I don't know what the dimensions of my field are going to be, but I know it's supposed to be a rectangle. And a rectangle has a width and it has a length. Okay, so I know that much. 48 feet of fence is to be used. So when I build my fence, I've got 48 feet that I can use to go there. Well, if I'm concerned with how much fence I'm going to use, that means what I'm after here is the perimeter. And I know the perimeter has to be 48. Okay, well I know that the formula for perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. All right, that's pretty good. I'm getting there. And now I need to use this other clue that I was given, that the length is to be twice the width. So wherever I see an L, I can replace that with 2W. With 2W. And I'm going to do that in my formula. So when I set this up to solve, what I'm going to have over here is that the perimeter equals 2 times the length. But instead of L, I'm going to use 2W. You may remember that as being called substitution from your algebra courses. And then plus 2W. So this L got replaced with 2W because I know those two are equal because the problem told me so. Now I've got one equation with one variable, so I'm going to be able to solve it. We've got 48 equals 4W plus 2W. 48 is equal to 6W. I'll divide both sides by 6 and find out that the width is going to be 8 feet. It asks me, what will the dimensions be? So I need to give both. I just found out that the width was going to be 8 feet. And the length, how am I going to find the length? Well, the length is equal to twice the width. So if I just double that, my length is going to be 16 feet. And so there's the width and length of the rectangle. Now I may want to take a minute and check that. If I have a width of 8 and a length of 16 and a width of 8 and a length of 16, this better add up to 48. Well, let's see. 16 and 16 is 32, and 8 would be 40. 8 more is 48. Sure enough, it works. I can feel great about my answer. Now let's move on to triangles. The perimeter of a triangle is similar to rectangles, and we're going to add up all the sides. With only 3 sides, we're just going to add those up rather than have a formula for that. We do have a formula for the area of a triangle. It is 1/2 times the base times the height. A really important part of this is finding the height, and we're going to use an isosceles triangle as an example of how that works. So if I'm told that I've got an isosceles triangle, that means that at least 2 of the sides are equal, and let's say that we're told that this side is 37 inches and this side is 37 inches, and the question that I'm being asked is, what is the perimeter and what is the area of this triangle? Oh yeah, let's throw in one other piece of information, that this bottom length is 24 inches. So if we want to find the perimeter of this triangle, well, that's what we get if we were to walk all the way around. We need to add up all the sides. So we've got 37 inches plus 37 inches plus 24 inches. And so the perimeter of this triangle is going to be 98 inches. Now for the area, that's going to be a little trickier. I know my formula is 1/2 times the base times the height. Kicker is, if I look at this triangle, I don't know what the height is. In order to find the height, I need to draw in a vertical line. That creates a right triangle, and I'm going to use that to decide how tall this triangle is. If I know the entire bottom here is 24, and it's an isosceles triangle, and I've drawn a line straight down from the top, then each of these pieces is 12 inches in length. And what I've done here is I have created a right triangle inside my triangle, where I've got one of the legs is 12, one of the legs I don't know, and the hypotenuse is 37. So I'm going to use the Pythagorean Theorem to find out how tall my triangle is. If I'm going to find the area, I'm going to need the height. The way I'm going to find that height is by drawing in this vertical line, which creates this right triangle inside my triangle, and then the Pythagorean theorem is how I'm going to find the height. So 12 squared will be 144 plus x squared is equal to 37 squared, which is 1,369. I need to subtract x squared from both sides, subtract 144 from both sides, and I get that x squared is 1,225. And then I find out that x, which is the height of my triangle, is 35. My last step here is to find the area of this triangle. I'll try to squeeze that in right down here at the bottom. And I've got 1/2 times the base, which is this entire length of 24 inches, times the height, which I just found to be 35 inches. And when I multiply all those together, I get 420. Remember, we're finding area here, so this answer is in terms of square inches. Most of the triangle problems you deal with will be relatively easy to do. We'll take advantage of this formula. The area is 1/2 times the base times the height. In a case like the example we just looked at where you aren't given the height, you may have to do a little bit of work first to find out what the height is. Then once you have the base and the height, you can use that formula to find the area.